Next on Ebert and Roeper, the worst movies of the year. I'm Roger Ebert.
And I'm Richard Roeper. We're counting down the terrible movies that stole your time, our time, and your money.
Help us.
But all you have to do is look at me to know that every word is true. Don't cry for me, Argentina.
That was a scene from Connie and Carla, now playing at the multiplex of my nightmares in theater number 10. It's the very loud, very theatrical, very sitcom-ish kickoff to this special show ranking among the very worst movies I saw this year. Now, Nia Vardalos struck gold with My Big Fat Greek Wedding, but she had a big fat bomb with Connie and Carla. I've seen more entertaining musical numbers during karaoke night on a cruise ship.
My number 10 pick is M. Night Shyamalan's The Village, and this was a real disappointment from a director who provided some of the best and most ingenious films of other recent years. It tells the story of a settlement of people who never leave their village and never go into the woods for reasons which we find all too easy to anticipate.
Don't let them in.
A lot of work obviously went into the film, but not, unfortunately, a lot of thought.
I like this movie. You know, I mean, I know it's a little hokey, and M. Night Shyamalan has kind of done the same thing a few times, but I certainly would not have found room for it on my list of the worst movies of the year.
Surprisingly, it was only one step up from, oh, it was only a dream.
Yeah, well.
You're right about Connie and Carla, though. You know, it was an amateur theatrical, and it was done like an amateur theatrical.
Yeah,
I mean,
really.
It wasn't like a professional movie. Okay, number 9 on my list, which is The Whole 10 Yards, where you can almost see that the actors know they're in a turkey. We're in trouble right at the top with Bruce Willis hiding out in Mexico, masquerading as a house husband. And number 8 of the year's worst films, Resident Evil Apocalypse. A deadly virus escapes from an underground lab because a corporation stupidly unseals the lab, and soon zombies walk the earth. But how come the zombies are so easy to kill? The 7th worst film of the year, or any year, was White Chicks, where Marlon and Shawn Wayans go undercover, if you call this cover.
Nah, yo, hold my poodle. Huh? Hold my poodle, dog.
Now, is it only me, or did the Wayans brothers look like creatures the zombie hunters should have been shooting at in Resident Evil Apocalypse?
It is not only you, and actually you've given me inspiration. I think if we took your 3 titles and we had the zombie killers from Resident Evil go through the whole 10 yards and White Chicks mowing everybody down, you might have gotten one slightly entertaining movie. You know, Resident Evil, it's based on a video game, and they actually dumbed it down to turn it into a movie, which is hard to do. Which is not good, not good. Now, live from New York, it's another Saturday Night Live alum and a dreadful comedy that wouldn't be worth your $2 if you saw it in the bargain bin at the local Piggly Wiggly. It comes in at number 9 on my list. Taxi was about as much fun as getting a flat tire in Midtown Manhattan during rush hour in a rainstorm.
And you can't die from nitrous oxide, can you? Ah! He's laughing, Jeff.
Now, see, the idea is we're supposed to be the ones laughing, but at least Taxi was light and forgettable, unlike the sickening horror film that ranks number 8, Saw, the ugliest, nastiest movie of the year. This is yet another woeful and derivative attempt to mimic the style and shock of the Brad Pitt-Morgan Freeman film 7. But instead of a darkly intriguing story, Saw had a lingering, near-pornographic approach to torture and dismemberment. The plot, such as it is made incomprehensible by a jagged timeline and ridiculous red herrings, topped off by a twist ending that defies all logic, even horror movie logic.
Congratulations, you are still alive. Most people are so ungrateful to be alive.
And whose idea was it to make a live-action movie based on a cult British series from the 60s about crime-fighting puppets? Maybe there were 6 people in America anticipating the theatrical release of the number 7 movie on my list, Thunderbirds.
Time to thunderize. Yes.
In the case of Thunderbirds, the move from puppets to humans wasn't necessarily an acting upgrade.
You know, Thunderbirds was going to go on my list of the worst films of the year, but it just wasn't good enough.
Okay, I know exactly what you mean by that. All right, coming up next, 2 Oscar-winning actresses sink to new depths as we count down the worst films of 2004.
I am dying.
If you don't have an identity, why keep it a secret?
Because you killed me.
That's probably the first Academy Award winner for Best Actress to wear a catsuit, at least on screen, and it was not a great career move. Halle Berry is too beautiful, too famous, too soft, and a little too old to play Catwoman. That's the number 6 movie on my list. The scenes where Halle exhibits cat-like tendencies in public are particularly humiliating.
Cat got your tongue?
And here's another Oscar winner, Nicole Kidman, doing her full-on whispering, "Why are you doing this?" routine in the 5th worst movie of the year, The Stepford Wives. The original from the 70s is overrated, but the remake was a schizophrenic disaster. It didn't even know if the wives were brainwashed humans or actual robots, seemingly switching gears in mid-story.
Wait, you work out dressed like this? Well, of course. Whatever we do, we always want to look our very best.
There's a scene in The Stepford Wives where a guy turns his wife into a cash machine. Money actually comes out of her mouth. Maybe they can get that wife to give refunds to everybody who wasted their money on this film.
Well, of course, I voted thumbs up for The Stepford Wives, but that would not be the first of the movies I reviewed during the year that I would choose to defend at this point in the show. That's okay with you?
You want to mulligan on this one? Go ahead, right now. Take the thumb.
Move right along.
Down for The Stepford Wives. Down.
Move right along to number 6 on my list, a Japanese horror film named The Grudge, in which a lot of American characters walk into a haunted house in Tokyo and unwisely stick their hands, arms, heads, and other body parts into places where they hear scary noises. You should never, never stick your hand into a place where you heard a scary noise. The characters check in, but they don't check out in this house. It made no sense to me, and you wonder how many victims the house has to claim before the neighbors start to say, "Hey, everyone who walks in there is killed."
What are you doing here?
The year's 5th worst film was New York Minute, starring Mary-Kate and Ashley Olsen in a movie that not only should have gone straight to video, but should have gone straight through video and kept on going to the end of the universe and never looked back. New York Minute was obviously generated entirely as a vehicle for the Olsen twins, but what kind of a vehicle has no idea where to go or what to do when it gets there? This one should have put on the brakes.
Yeah, I think that probably a documentary about these two girls in real life would be a lot more interesting than New York Minute. Now, you mentioned The Grudge, and I think, I had Saw on my list of the 10 worst films. I could have put The Grudge there, too, because this is the same kind of thing, and you're right. This is just one of those movies with one quality kill after another. That's all
I've
it's
got
about.
a new genre for these films. They're vomitoriums.
Nicely done. It could be playing in a vomitorium near you.
Now we're getting closer to the top of the list, or would that be the bottom of the list, as we count down the worst movies of 2004.
Help me, please. Here, hide in mine. In there.
Counting down the worst movies of 2004, Dogville is my number 4 pick, a disappointment from the usually exciting Lars von Trier. He draws the chalk outlines of a Rocky Mountain mining town on the floor of a soundstage and enacts a labored dirge about citizens who are vindictive and mean-spirited, and yet keep up an act of small-town friendliness. Actors like Nicole Kidman and Paul Bettany are wasted, and others like Lauren Bacall are hardly used. Dogville was called anti-American, but if you ask me, it's actually anti-audience. Number 3 on my list is a nasty piece of business named The Girl Next Door. This one masqueraded as a teen comedy, but what a premise. Emile Hirsch stars as a kid who falls in love with the sexy girl next door, only to discover she is a porn actress, so he recruits her and some of her porn friends to make a movie during the senior prom. This girl is either too young to be making porn or too old to be dating this kid. You decide.
I'm all wet. Can I come in?
Number 2 on my list is the truly awful and very scary Christmas with the Kranks, which is being promoted as a family movie. That's strange because basically it's about a family that makes a reasonable decision not to spend a lot of money on Christmas for 1 year only, and is ostracized by their overbearing neighbors who enforce Christmas as if it were the law. What happened to the American tradition that your home is your castle, and if you don't want Frosty on the roof, that's your right?
Stop the car, Nora. Stop the car, Nora, please. We just want Frosty.
Church leaders have been recommending this movie, and they're even quoted in the ads, which is ironic since it's totally secular. You never see anything religious on screen. Nobody ever goes to church. There's nothing but snowmen and reindeer, and the local priest apparently skips midnight mass because he wants to attend the Kranks big party.
I don't know why church, I mean, what is this, the Passion of the Frosty?
Yeah,
I mean, this doesn't seem like something church leaders would recommend. And, you know, to go back to Nicole Kidman in Dogville, 3 movies this year. In Dogville, she's chained to a bed and assaulted by just about everybody in town. In the Stepford Wives, her husband wants to turn her into a robot. And in Birth, her husband drops dead and a 10-year-old boy comes back and says, I'm your husband reincarnated. That's a tough year at the movies for Nicole Kidman.
I kind of like Birth. I thought that was a good movie. I know we disagreed on it.
Yeah,
but
you and
in
Nicole,
that case,
you were the
wrong.
two. You were the two.
Wrong.
Yeah, right. Okay, well, whether the source material is the puppets of Thunderbirds or cartoon characters such as the Flintstones or Fat Albert and the Cosby Kids, turning those old TV favorites into live-action films is almost always a bad idea. Never more so than with the inexplicably popular Scooby Doo franchise. This year we had Scooby Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed, which ranks at number 4 on my list, and it once again features the worst CGI creation of all time. No, not Freddie Prinze Jr., the dog.
Exchanging glances, Scooby-Dooby-Doo.
Now, if you people keep going to the Scooby-Doo movies, they're going to keep making them, and then I have to see them, so I beg of you, stop it. Speaking of howlers, Roger, I bet you've already forgotten about Godsend, the 3rd worst movie of the year and the most pretentious thriller in years. Cloning never works in the movies, so you know Greg Kinnear and Rebecca Romaine are in for some serious PTA meetings when they turn to Mad Dr. Robert De Niro, who replicates their dead son. His name is Adam because, of course, they're all playing God, so the kid has to be named Adam. Godsend is supposed to be a cautionary tale, and you know it is. It's a cautionary tale saying stay away from ill-conceived sci-fi hocus-pocus featuring a kid who can't act.
Take it easy. It's okay. Okay, it's okay.
Stay away!
Take it easy.
The whole 9 Yards was a black comedy that had a kind of fearless quality to it, with the actors throwing themselves into every scene. The whole 10 Yards requires us to be fearless. It's as if the filmmakers removed all the charm and dark humor of the original and thought it was just enough to reunite the cast and tell everyone, hey, start yelling at each other. The smirky charms of Bruce Willis and Matthew Perry are no match for this hopelessly contrived script.
One of them was you're not supposed to pretend that you're kidnapped and get your husband shot at for 3 days while he's trying to save you. I mean, I'm not a lawyer, but I believe this is grounds for divorce.
About the best thing I can say for the whole 10 Yards is that it was so jaw-droppingly terrible that we're probably never going to see the whole 11 or 12 or 13 yards.
You know, every once in a while, a sequel is better than the original, like Spider-Man 2 was a great movie.
Sure.
But the whole 10 Yards, it's as if they had no idea why the first movie was good in the first place.
I just wonder if this is one of those cases where everybody had a contractual obligation to come back, because you mentioned these guys didn't look like this, the actors didn't look like they wanted to be there.
Why not? Don't greenlight it until you have a script that you really like.
Yeah, I mean, you've got people like Bruce Willis, Matthew Perry with a lot of talent, and they're just wasted in something like this.
Okay. Our individual picks for the worst films, the single worst films of 2004, are coming up next, and for the first time, I have a tie.
Well, it's cheaper and more effective than therapy. Roger and I are purging ourselves of the lousiest movies of 2004. After this show, we will never speak of them again. Now it's time for my absolute worst film of the year. You had it at number 7 on your list. It's White Chicks. Connie and Carla is some like it hot compared to this gender-bending bomb, with Marlon and Shawn Wayans as dim-bulb FBI agents who impersonate a couple of Paris Hilton types, don't ask why. And as Roger mentioned, there's one big, major, unavoidable problem. These guys look like they've been horribly disfigured.
Holy smokes, yeah! That was nice. Geez, lady, all that for a bag?
It's not just a bag. It's Prada.
Now, all the other bad movies we talked about were actually movies on some level. This film should have ended at the makeup testing stage, but nobody in this movie seems to realize that their socialite friends have been replaced by 2 bizarre-looking individuals who are taller, broader of shoulder, and deeper of voice. Now, 6 writers, including 3 Wayans brothers, carefully crafted a script, if you want to call it that, that's heavy with flatulence jokes, easy cheap shots at the idle rich, and slapstick that is straight from the old vaudeville handbook, and that's an insult to vaudeville. This is the kind of movie where the characters are always saying, it's not what you think, or let me explain, but they never get the chance to explain because that would stop the movie dead in its tracks. We should only be so lucky.
I want to go back to the makeup. I mean, these people look scary.
Yeah.
They do not look like human beings, and they don't look like they're in makeup either. They just look like some kind of an alien that didn't get the blueprints right when they were creating human beings.
It's so true.
They just bring every scene to a halt because you just look at them and they're so odd that you can't even pay attention to anything else, including the humor, if there was any.
And even in a movie like this, where it's obviously a farce and it's broad and it's over the top, if every single character has to be an absolute idiot who never says, hey, you don't look like my friend. You're just watching it going, well, what are you doing here? How can you continue with this film?
Bad idea. Okay. My choice as the year's worst film is a tie. Yes,
Cheater.
A tie vote, ladies and gentlemen. A tie between Troy and Alexander. How can you choose?
I can choose.
Okay. There's two stories here of unconvincing heroes leading unlikely armies into incomprehensible battles between inconsequential love scenes and dialogue so unlikely it could have been written directly for Mad Magazine. In Troy, Brad Pitt played Achilles, who was but one man in an army of countless thousands, or millions, or trillions, I don't know, but everything stopped for his big fight.
Is there no one else?
And Alexander was played by another actor who ought to fire his agent, Colin Farrell.
Conquer your fear! And I promise you, you will conquer death!
Everybody talked about the sex in Alexander, but only Rosario Dawson did anything about it, and for that, I am grateful to Rosario Dawson. I never understood why Gladiator won the Oscar, but it was a masterpiece compared to Troy and Alexander. Maybe the secret, how about this, is to make a good movie about strong characters and abandon the idea of showing vast armies conquering the world. Every time Alexander gave a speech to his troops, I wondered how the guys in the back were able to hear.
I kind of like these movies. I think, first of all, Alexander is just...
Enough to recommend them?
Yeah, I mean, Alexander, as I said when we did it on the show, it's pure campy entertainment. There's so much going on there. It's an absolute mess, but I found it to be a hoot. And I think Troy's a better film than that.
Alexander was too slow and too long to be
well, you know what? When it comes out on video, people can go from scene to scene. You can check out Jared Leto's nice mascara. You can check out Rosario Dawson doing that kind of that sex scene like this, and Angelina Jolie and her snakes.
Okay.
I mean, there's good stuff there.
Troy was probably the better movie, especially Peter O'Toole's scene. But I mean, the armies were so big that all those people wouldn't fit inside the city they came out of. I mean, it was ridiculous as far as special effects were concerned.
I want to also give you credit for coming up with the concept of the tie, because you got to put 11 movies now on your list instead of 10.
Yes.
So next year I may have a three-way tie.
You could have a tie for second place, too.
I might think about that.
There you go.
Next week, we'll review Ethan Hawke and Lawrence Fishburne in Assault on Precinct 13. And when we come back, we'll recap our complete lists of the worst movies of the year.
Visit our website at ebertandroeper.tv or at movies.com.
Okay, counting down my list of the worst films of 2004. Number 10, The Village. 9, The Whole 10 Yards. Number 8, Resident Evil Apocalypse. Number 7, White Chicks. Number 6, The Grudge. Number 5, New York Minute. Number 4, Dogville, a real dog. Number 3, Girl Next Door. Number 2, Christmas with the Kranks. And number 1, a tie between Alexander and Troy.
Yeah, well, fine. I'll put Garfield at number 10A on my list. My real list for the worst movies of the year: number 10, Connie and Carla. Number 9, Taxi. Number 8, Saw. At number 7, Thunderbirds. Number 6, Catwoman. Number 5, The Stepford Wives.
Just finished.
At number 4, Scooby Doo 2, Monsters Unleashed. Number 3 is Godsend. Number 2, The Whole 10 Yards. And the worst movie of 2004 from my standpoint, White Chicks.
You know, I have to confess there probably were movies last year worse than some of the movies on my list, but they were of such little value and so low profile that why pick on
You know, when I was putting together the list as well, I thought, well, what's the point of picking out some small film that really didn't work at all and nobody got to see it?
Yeah.
It's when you have these major stars with big budgets and big studios behind these films and they're bad that they deserve to be slammed one more time.
What I would like to know is Christmas with the Kranks, which every critic in the country thought was a terrible movie, is now doing business because the churches have gotten behind it. Do people who go to see this movie think they've seen a good movie?
I don't know. You know, once they've got your money, they've got your money. I haven't heard from a lot of people who said, well, I saw Christmas with the Kranks and I think you're crazy.
Because it's certainly not
In fact, I've gotten like one email.
It's not a movie about churchgoers or about, you know, the religious significance of Christmas in any way at all. In fact, it's quite the opposite.
It's an embarrassing film.
Okay, remember you can hear all our recent reviews at ebertandroeper.tv or at movies.com. You can read Richard's columns at suntimes.com and read my reviews at rogerebert.com. We'll leave you with a look at movies now in theaters, and until next week, the balcony is closed.
2 thumbs up for In Good Company, nice movie with Topher Grace and Dennis Quaid. 2 more thumbs up for A Love Song for Bobby Long, and 2 thumbs up for Coach Carter opening this week.
Yeah, this is the season where most of the Christmas movies are held over in long runs, and so it's nice that there is something new like Coach Carter.
Yes, Samuel L. Jackson really elevates that past the normal sports cliche movie.
Yes, he does.